Here we go with the Nintendo 3DS. This is a pretty good video game system, and another one that I grew up playing when I was a kid. Let's just get the basics out of the way first. The Nintendo 3DS system was officially released in North America on March 27th, 2011. Now I got my model, the original Nintendo 3DS model, on December 25th, 2011. And you know what? This time I actually have the box that it came in as well. Yeah, this time I actually remember where I placed the box in my basement. I was only 11 years old when I got the Nintendo 3DS in late 2011, and I did not own any TV consoles at the time. I did slowly start getting into TV consoles a year later when I got the Wii for my 12th birthday in 2012, and so on. Of course, I got myself a nice aqua blue Nintendo 3DS because blue is my favorite color. Yeah, I obviously took everything out of the box when I played it. I should note that Nintendo 3DS is the only time in my life that I have ever bought a video game system in the year that it came out. Again, I just have to throw that out there, because do not think that me buying brand new video game systems in the year they came out is going to be a regular thing. The Nintendo 3DS is the only time I have ever made that exception. I was like a very strong supporter of handheld gaming for a good 4 years, from 2008 to 2012. And even after like 2012, of course, I still continued to play handheld gaming, or for any of the games that I had not beaten up to that point. The Nintendo 3DS system was officially discontinued on September 16th, 2020. Now, why didn't I make a video about it sooner? Well, for one thing, I did not even know that the Nintendo 3DS was discontinued when it was announced. I didn't find out that the Nintendo 3DS was discontinued until like 2 months later in November 2020, when I was doing some research and found out that, oh dang, they actually have discontinued the Nintendo 3DS. But by that point in 2020, I don't blame them. Another thing was that I was kind of waiting for them to discontinue the Nintendo 3DS before making a collection video. I was like, oh, when are they going to discontinue the Nintendo 3DS? They could potentially still release another SpongeBob game for it. But then years pass by and it's like, nope, Nintendo 3DS discontinued. They're not doing any more SpongeBob games for the system. The Nintendo 3DS lasted 9 years, from early 2011 to September 2020. And I was there for most of that time. Again, I did not get this system on the day it came out, but I did get it at least in the year it came out. So I still like to count that. The Nintendo 3DS was good at keeping Nintendo relevant throughout the 2010s decade, so I do give it respect for that. It's pretty telling how after the Nintendo 3DS was discontinued, Nintendo wanted to shift all of their focus onto the Switch. Which, this is the only current Nintendo system going on right now in 2022. I forgot to mention this earlier, but there was a lot of really good games for the Nintendo 3DS during its first year on the market. That's another thing that made me want to buy the Nintendo 3DS in the year that it came out. All of the regular SpongeBob games on Nintendo 3DS I have recorded and uploaded to YouTube, at least for whenever I complete a game. Technically, the only one I didn't record was a crossover game for 3DS, which we will get to later. Of course, all of those were done by me filming the Nintendo 3DS with a camera like this. I already explained some of this in my capture card video, but I do not have a Nintendo 3DS capture card for various reasons. I know one reason is because of its high price point. If you go on eBay, a lot of the Nintendo 3DS capture cards are priced over $1,000. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to do some high quality Nintendo 3DS recordings, but then I looked more into it. Technically speaking, I do have the white Nintendo 3DS for capture boards, because I have the original model 3DS from 2011, which is all that was available at the time. Not any of the revision models. Even going to the website, the Nintendo 3DS capture board is only supported for the original model of the system. So yeah, you are not going to get any high quality Nintendo 3DS gameplay footage on this channel, especially for games that I have already played and beaten before. No, I am not playing Nintendo 3DS games on an emulator. I'm playing them on an actual 3DS system, the way they were originally intended to be played. Also, I got my Nintendo 3DS in the year it came out, and back then there were no emulators for 3DS games. Emulators are usually meant for older, discontinued systems. Back in the day, I bought the physical copies of those Nintendo 3DS games because that was my only option back then. I don't think Nintendo 3DS emulators even became a thing until like 2014. This is where I keep my SpongeBob Nintendo 3DS games whenever I'm not playing them. Right here inside of this blue bin, along with all of the SpongeBob Nintendo DS games, which I already made a whole separate video about. You can see the only Nintendo 3DS games I have room for inside of this bin are the SpongeBob games. And also a random Art Academy game, which I actually haven't played much of. Oh yeah, Art Academy lessons for everyone. I think that was another game I was going to do a walkthrough of at some point, but I never got around to it, and never had the high quality stuff to record, like I said earlier. I actually used to have my SpongeBob Nintendo 3DS games on the kitchen table, but after the pancake syrup incident I talked about in the DS collection video, I moved all of the games that I am passionate about into this blue bin where it's a lot more protective. Unlike the Nintendo DS games, none of my Nintendo 3DS games ever got damaged. However, some of the games that I had formerly sitting on the table did get sun faded. Because I looked closely at some of my Nintendo 3DS games, and I saw how some of the cases were more yellow than white. Like I said before, the Nintendo DS and 3DS games that I do not have room for in this bin and that I'm less passionate about are still stacked here on the floor. I still have not found a better place for these games yet. Again, right behind it, I have the chargers going into a power strip, which I wish I would have gotten a lot sooner. But hey, at least I finally have it now. In this stack, I actually don't have too many other games that are not SpongeBob or Nickelodeon related. But here, for example, you can see I have some of the Mario games for Nintendo 3DS, which I actually remember buying these around the time they came out. I know these ones I've actually played to like full 100% completion, or pretty close. I know these games are a lot of fun. These ones are pretty good. But of course, back on topic, this video is going to be focusing on the SpongeBob games for the Nintendo 3DS, along with the one Nicktoons crossover game for the 3DS that has SpongeBob in it. Of course, I got all of these video games from various places. Actually, not that many places. I got exactly 2 of them from eBay and the other 2 from local stores. I bought all of the SpongeBob 3DS games around the time they came out or shortly after they came out, so that definitely helped. Just like last time, I've compiled a few different lists in order to make sure that I have the full 100% completed collection of SpongeBob video games that were ever released for the Nintendo 3DS system, including the one Nicktoons crossover game. Now that I have the whole collection, just how many SpongeBob video games were ever released for the Nintendo 3DS system? Well, it's quite easy to count. 4. Yep, that's right. They really didn't do that many SpongeBob games for the Nintendo 3DS. In fact, there's only 3 SpongeBob 3DS games if you do not include the crossover game. It's pretty telling how they only did SpongeBob games for the Nintendo 3DS during the first couple years, from 2011 to 2015. And even when they slowly started doing SpongeBob video games again in 2018 with Nickelodeon Kart Racers, they didn't put it out for 3DS. By that point, they had moved over to Nintendo Switch and released it for a couple other systems as well. I bought the SpongeBob games on Nintendo 3DS from 2012 to 2015. I can proudly say that I have fully played and beaten every single SpongeBob game ever made for the Nintendo 3DS. I'm serious. It only took me 10 years from 2012 to 2022, but I have fully completed every SpongeBob game and one crossover game on the Nintendo 3DS. This time I actually have the video proof of it. And I never thought I was going to do it, but here we are. All of these in the stack are sorted out exactly how they are on the shelf in the bin by release date order. I know there's a crossover game in there too, but there's no point in sorting that out into its own separate category because there's no other crossover games for the Nintendo 3DS with SpongeBob. That is also the same order that I'm going to be showing off these games in, the release date order. For each one, I'm going to talk about where I got the game from, the year it came out, my opinion on the game, and I'm going to show you the case fully complete. Yeah, I got all these SpongeBob games complete with manuals and everything because I bought all of these games brand new sealed. Okay, let's get things started with the very first standalone SpongeBob Nintendo 3DS game to ever be released, which is SpongeBob SquarePants 3D. This game was released in May 2011. I ended up getting this game off of Amazon in March 2012, almost a year after it came out. I will say that this is an early Nintendo 3DS title, because this came out in May 2011, very shortly after the system itself came out in March 2011. This is one of those games that I honestly never thought I would fully beat, but eventually I did, like a decade later, and it took me several tries, but I have finally done it. I also have the other release of this game for the Wii, and I do have the tablet for this as well. I've already done a whole discussion video on both versions of the game, so I'm not going to talk too much more about it in this video. Oh, and there's the U-Draw tablet for the Wii version. The only way to play the Wii version without an emulator. Back to the Nintendo 3DS version. You already got a good look at the front. Here is the spine. And here is the back. I still stand by what I said in that discussion video. This is a good game, although maybe not worth trying to fully beat. Because the save file only goes up to 99%. Apparently the programmers did not know how to put in a full 100% ending in this game. But I've gone on about that before inside. The instruction booklet, because this does not have a built-in manual like some of the later games. We'll get to those. Yeah, there's Patsy, because he's in the game. Again, there's the advertisement for SpongeBob DVDs that were coming out at the time. If I can get a good hand of it. Here is a good look at the cartridge itself. Yeah, these are different from the DS cartridges. I know for one thing they deliberately have this like bump coming out, just so then it cannot fit inside of a DS. Only the 3DS. The next game we have is Nicktoons MLB Sweetie. This version of the game was released in March 2012. This is the first and only Nicktoons crossover game to ever be released on the Nintendo 3DS. Yeah, this is that crossover game that I was mentioning earlier in the video. A year after it was released, I bought this game at Walmart in March 2013. I do vividly remember it being the same exact time in store that I got the SpongeBob Season 8 DVD. So yeah, this was a good investment for me at the time. Because it was like, yeah, play a game and watch an entire season of the SpongeBob cartoon. This was the first version of the game I played. I used to play this for hours back when I got it. I did eventually pick up the Nintendo DS version as well in 2020. Which I even said I didn't really need to get this version as well, but I did for completion's sake when it came to that system. I will say that the DS version plays worse than the 3DS version. Again, you'll notice some differences between these two covers, like how the sky background in the 3DS cover is more purple than blue. And you'll also notice how on the Nintendo 3DS cover, Fanboy is removed and replaced with Jimmy Neutron, which this character is exclusive to the Nintendo 3DS version, by the way. There's some other stuff that is exclusive to the Nintendo 3DS version of this game, which I won't be going into here. In some ways, I can understand why there is only one Nicktoons crossover game on the Nintendo 3DS, because they stopped making Nicktoons crossover games for a while. I know that in recent years, the Nicktoons crossover video games have been making a comeback, but of course these are being released on the more newer systems. This weird sports game, featuring a combination of both real Major League Baseball players and Nickelodeon cartoon characters. You already got a good look at the front. Here is the spine. And here is the back. Nicktoons take on baseball's best in Sweetie. This game is okay. That copyright section is very crammed on the back. Oh, and this game has local multiplayer. Inside. Instruction booklet. At least this one has actual colors and pictures inside, unlike the previous game I showed. March 6, 2012. Oh look, they are trying to shamelessly advertise another version of the same exact game. At least this ad is a 3DS game. Cartridge. Once again, this game does not have a built-in instruction manual. Moving right along, we have SpongeBob SquarePants, Plankton's Robotic Revenge. This video game was released in October 2013. This is another game where I had trouble finding it in the store and ended up buying it on eBay in October 2013. This game was released on a lot of different systems, 6 of them to be exact. Just like Squiggle Pants, this is another game that I actually played the console version of as well. In this case, it's the PlayStation 3 version. With this version, I actually was able to find at a Walmart store on October 31st, 2013. I know this PlayStation 3 version, me and my dad did a lot of multiplayer sessions on and played it up to full completion. By the way, despite being a handheld, this Nintendo 3DS version is fairly identical to the console versions of this game. And all they did was throw in some touchscreen gimmicks. After I got this game, I was able to beat it quickly because this game is fairly short. Spine. Oh, and I also did fully 100% this game, which I already did a whole separate video on for this version. Back. This game is okay. Same with the PlayStation 3 version. This game does have its moments. But it is also kind of generic and gets repetitive after a while. And unlike the console version, the Nintendo 3DS version does not have multiplayer, but it does have Street Pass for anyone who even uses that nowadays. Opening up the case. This was around the time that video games manuals were starting to go digital. So this game on 3DS does not have any physical manual. Although it does tell you literally right here on how to access the built-in instruction manual on the Nintendo 3DS home system menu after putting in the game cartridge. With more legal info in foreign languages. We have another paper inside the case for the Nintendo Club. I usually don't use these codes or points. I think I did once a long time ago for a different game that was not SpongeBob related. Oh, by the way, have fun with this code. Because, yeah, it expired in 2017. There we go. And yeah, the only SpongeBob game on 3DS to even have Club Nintendo points or a code or whatever. There's the empty case. Here's the cartridge itself. Here we finally have the last SpongeBob game ever released on the Nintendo 3DS, which is called SpongeBob Hero Pants. This video game was released in February 2015. As you can probably already tell by the artwork, this game is based on the movies, the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. I got this game for Valentine's Day 2015, very shortly after it came out. For once, this is the only version of the game I have. I do not own a PlayStation Vita or an Xbox 360. So the Nintendo 3DS version of SpongeBob Hero Pants is the only version that I've played. Yep, that's right. This is another movie-based SpongeBob video game. Because they already did one back in 2004 for the very first SpongeBob movie ever made. Oh, and this first movie game, by the way, I also played this on PC a long time ago. There is no video game based on the third movie, though. The SpongeBob movie spawns on the one. Of course, I have watched the movie that this game is based on. I did play and beat this game shortly after I got it. Spine. I even went out of my way to do the full 100% completion in this game, which I already made a whole separate video on back. This game is pretty pathetic and bad, honestly. This game is so boring. That's the thing. This game sucks. But the movie that it's based on is actually really good, in my opinion. Honestly, the second movie is way better than this game. Inside. Here we have a tiny little advertisement for some books based on the second movie. I have most of these books, by the way. Except for the coloring one, though. Plankton to the Rescue. I don't think I have that. Oops. On the other side, we have an ad. This one's copyrighted in 2014, interestingly enough. Pre-order on Blu-ray and digital HD. This was before the Blu-ray came out, which for one, I actually have. I already made a whole separate video about the Blu-ray version. By the way, this is the same warning, health and safety warning, that was in the Plankton's Robotic Revenge game, so I'm not going to show it again. But the little advertisement paperback. Cartridge. Like I stated before, after SpongeBob Hero Pants was released in 2015, Activision lost the rights, and they stopped making SpongeBob games for 3 years until Nickelodeon Kart Racers was released in 2018. And there you have it. Every single SpongeBob Nintendo 3DS game ever released. There they are, all stacked. I wanted to keep this video under an hour because there really isn't that many games even here to begin with. I will say that after painfully playing and beating every single SpongeBob game for this system, I'm not over that impressed with the library of SpongeBob games for the Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo DS had a much better library of SpongeBob games, mainly because a lot of those games were actually good, and there was just a lot more SpongeBob games for the Nintendo DS in general. The Nintendo 3DS library only has 4 SpongeBob games, and only one of them is actually good, which is the Squigglepants game. 2 of them are just kind of mediocre or average, and one of them is just straight up bad in the case of Hero Pants. So yeah, I'll take the library of SpongeBob games for the Nintendo DS over the 3DS ones any day. Now I am done.